Greetings everyone, hope all of you are having a fantastic day. Let's get back into Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous and do yet another build. So this time I want to go through yet another one of the wizard builds. I know, it seems like I'm kind of stuck on spellcasters, but I absolutely love them. We will start moving on to the other classes I haven't touched yet. But for right now, I actually want to go through the Elemental Specialist. I had a fantastic time using that class while I was going through the Azata path, and I want to show you all how it works. So let's go. So for the Elemental Specialist class, you lose the ability to choose your own specialist school. You absolutely must take evocation. But in exchange for that, you get focused element. An elemental specialist selects one element. He gains the ability to convert elemental spell damage to his chosen element. So for example, you can take chain lightning, but make it fire instead of just lightning. Super cool. So we're gonna go ahead and be an elf here. Gain that elven magic, which gives you a +2 bonus on caster level checks made to overcome spell resistance, along with a small bonus to knowledge arcana skill checks as well. I'm going to choose base. So as far as background, when you look at the elemental specialist skills that you get knowledge skills and lore skills, but you're missing, of course, persuasion. So I personally like going the warrior route and saying that this is a spell casting gladiator known for being the very best in combat, but honestly, you can choose whatever you like. Okay, so now for attributes, we're gonna bump charisma up to 14. We're gonna completely dump strength. You don't need that at all. We're gonna get constitution up to 12. And then we're gonna bump intelligence up to 20, and we'll put a couple of more points in dexterity. Now for skills, you definitely want persuasion. You're gonna have a nice bump in knowledge arcana as well, so you might as well get that. And then what else you choose is up to you. It depends on what your party is missing, but all these skills are great. And then for your first feat, you're gonna wanna go ahead and get point blank shot. This is just okay, but it leads up to the next feat that we really need. And then for bonus wizard feat, we're gonna go spell focus and get evocation. For the arcane bond, you can choose object or get a familiar that's gonna give you a bonus to specific checks. Me personally, I like the hair the most. I really like that +4 bonus on initiative checks. Let you get the jump on damaging enemies, but choose whatever works for you. Opposition school, I go with necromancy, divination, and enchantment. And then for focused element, this to some degree depends upon your playstyle, but I'll tell you, as the game stands right now, they support fire the most. You get a bunch of different items that are really gonna help you deal more damage and be more effective when using fire spells, and I haven't seen anything close to that for the other elements. But of course, in the final game, it might be more even. So take that as you will. And then here, you're definitely gonna want magic missile. You're gonna want enlarged person, expeditious retreat, mage armor, absolutely, shield, absolutely, grease. At the beginning of the game, you're not necessarily gonna be focused as much on just blowing people up. You're probably gonna have to buff some of your party and use some crowd control. But then as you move on, you're gonna deal strictly and just dealing damage. And then for your deity, I'm gonna go Calistria, chaotic good. You can choose whatever face and voice you like. At level 3, take precise shot. Now this allows you to shoot ranged weapons at opponents engaged in melee without taking a -4 penalty on your attack roll. This is a big deal when it comes to those rays that you're gonna be using, such as Scorching Ray, which is an absolutely fantastic power that gets more powerful as you level up. And Burning Arc is a nice option as well. And then at level 4, I'd say you should take more of the defensive spells available to you, so Blur and Mirror Image. At level 5, go ahead and get Greater Spell Focus, Evocation, and then get Spell Penetration. And then at level 5, I would say you should definitely get Haste. Even if you have somebody else on your team capable of casting Haste, being able to cast it on yourself when you're walking around in towns and things of that nature is a great quality of life increase for you. Then as far as damage dealing, I personally go with Fireball. It creates a 20-foot burst and does 1d6 fire damage per caster level. But you could also choose Lightning Bolt, which is instead an 120-foot line. Kind of depends upon your playstyle. And then for the next round of level 3 powers, Again, what you take is kind of dependent upon your play style. If you want more variety as far as what kind of damage you can do, of course, Lightning Bolt and Battering Blast are both available to you. Dispel Magic is great to be able to strip off defenses of different enemies. Displacement gives you more survivability, and Protection from Arrows Communal does the same thing. Protection from Arrows, if you don't have anybody else who can use this, you absolutely want to take it for yourself. But Resist Energy Communal is also great, but there are so many party members who have this, you should absolutely be able to leave that to somebody else. And then level 7, get Greater Spell Penetration. Then level 7, take Control Fireball and Dragon's Breath. Control Fireball is what you're going to use at first when you first get these spells, but at some point it'll be outclassed by Dragon's Breath. Just keep in mind that Control Fireball, you can fire it into a group that includes your party members with no problem, whereas once you switch over to Dragon's Breath, you're going to have to be much more careful about its placement. And then for level 8, Protection from Energy Communal is a great spell, but again, there should be other people in your party who can go ahead and use this. Dimension Door is also fantastic and can be a real lifesaver for your party. If you don't have anybody else who can cast this, you should definitely take it. What else you take is up to you. There are some people who swear by Ice Storm. I personally don't use it because I don't like making an area difficult terrain. I feel like that's making things harder than it has to be for my melee characters. But again, it's up to your own personal taste. And then at level 9, I get Elemental Focus, Fire. And then for your level 9 spells, Fire Snake is definitely a must. Angelic Aspect is going to give you some additional defensive capabilities, so it might be a nice pickup. Stone Skin Communal is also absolutely something you want to be casting on your party. So if you don't have another party member who can do that, you'll want to pick it up here. And Animal Growth is a nice increase in damage for any pets that you have in the party. Finally, Icy Prison allows you to paralyze a particular creature. So it's a great way to be able to take a troublesome enemy out of the fight. And then for your level 10 bonus feat, I get Greater Elemental Focus, Fire. For your level 11 feat, I'd get Combat Casting. So at level 11, I definitely get Chain Lightning. Sirocco is really nice in that it'll knock enemies prone and make them fatigued, or if they're already fatigued, it'll make them exhausted. So that could be a nice pickup as well. And here at level 12, you can go ahead and pick up Hellfire Ray. This is going to be by far one of your most damaging single target spells. I didn't pick it up during the last level because a lot of times, especially at this point in the game, you're going to be focusing on large groups of enemies. And so it's important to be able to take them all out or hit all of them as quickly as possible. But this would be a worthy choice even on the last level. Hellfire Ray is absolutely fantastic. Then at level 13, I go for Improved Critical. Ray. You definitely want to pick up Ice Body here. If you don't have anybody else who can cast Legendary Proportions, go ahead and pick that up. It's a fantastic buff to melee damage for your melee-oriented characters. Just keep in mind that it does cost a dinosaur bone. So this is something you pop for a boss battle. You can't just have it on them all the time. And then you also want to make sure that you have somebody on the team who can cast True Seeing. There are a lot of enemies who have invisibility, mirror image, displacement, things of that nature, and you need a way to cut through that, but you can't take it with this character. So make sure you have somebody else in your team who can cast that. Otherwise, as far as evocation, Caustic Eruption is an absolutely fantastic power. It's going to do a bunch of damage when you first cast it, more damage to creatures over the next 2 rounds who were affected and failed their saves, and it's not affected by a target spell resistance. At level 15, go ahead and take Critical Focus. And at level 15, for your bonus feat, go ahead and grab Quicken Spell. And then at level 15, you definitely want to grab Frightful Aspect. It's going to give you a bunch of defensive capabilities, along with giving you an aura that attempts to shake enemies that are around you. Angelic Aspect would also give you some additional defensive capabilities. If you've been using the original version, you might as well pick that up. As far as evocation, right now you want to go with Polar Ray. And at level 17, grab Reach. At level 17, you definitely want to grab Fiery Body. It's going to give you a bunch of defensive capabilities, along with enhancing some of your physical scores. It's great to have on your spellcaster. Mind Blink Communal is great to put on your party if you don't have a cleric that's capable of casting level 9 spells that mimic the same kind of effect. And then for evocation, you want to go ahead and get Clashing Rocks. Okay, so now that we've went through the character levels, let's go ahead and go through the mythic path options, and some of the spell options I've chosen might make a little bit more sense. So at first level, you want to go ahead and get Instrument of Freedom and Abundant Casting. At second level, we're going to go back into mythic abilities and get Improved Abundant Casting. And at third level, you get to choose your mythic path, so go ahead and pick Azata. For your mythic ability, go Ascendant Element, Fire. And at the end of mythic level 3, after choosing Azata, you're also going to get a Dragon Companion, who's going to increase in power as you gain more mythic levels, and also increase in size. At your fourth level, go back into mythic abilities and grab Greater Abundant Casting. For your first Azata superpower, we're going to take Favorable Magic. Whenever an enemy makes a saving throw against your spells, they roll the die twice and take the worst result. When the Azata makes a concentration check or check to overcome spell resistance, she rolls twice, takes the better result. And if you throw out a spell where a successful saving throw halves the damage, it actually only decreases it by 25% instead. Very powerful stuff. And then at the end of Mythic Level 4, you get Ode to Miraculous Magic, which grants you a +4 morale bonus on checks to overcome spell resistance and increase the saving throw DC of spells that require a will saving throw by 2. And then here at level 5, I'd go for Archmage Armor. And for your level 5 Azata spells, I'd get Good Hope. And at the end of Mythic level 5, you get Song of Broken Chains. So all allies within 50 feet get a freedom of movement effect and immunity to compulsion spells and spell-like abilities. And then for Mythic level 6, I get Spell Penetration. And then for your second superpower, I would get Zippy Magic. Whenever an Azata casts a spell that targets individual creatures, the spell affects one additional creature within a 30-foot range. If the target is an enemy, it'll affect an enemy. If it's an ally, it'll affect an ally. Additionally, spells that target enemies damage them for 2d6 plus mythic rank. Okay, so now that we've went through the character levels and our mythic options, let's take a brief look at what I've done and then jump into the spells, which I think is really the heart of this build overall anyway. So we took Abundant Casting, Improved Abundant Casting, and Greater Abundant Casting to give us a lot more spells to work with. Zippy Magic is going to increase our overall damage and allow us to make the most of individual spells, allowing them to hit more than one person. Archmage Armor is going to increase our survivability. And then with Ascendant Fire and Greater Elemental Focus Fire, we're going to make it even more difficult to resist the flames of the spells that we're casting. Remember that we have Elemental Focus Fire, so every single spell we cast is turned into fire no matter what the original element is. Because we chose Elf as our race, we're going to automatically get a +2 bonus on checks made to overcome spell resistance, and we'll increase that with Spell Penetration, Greater Spell Penetration, and Spell Penetration Mythic, and then add on to that Spell Focus Evocation to increase our difficulty class, and Greater Spell Evocation. You have to take Precise Shot and Point Blank Shot to ensure that all the race spells that we've added on are actually going to be able to hit enemies. And Combat Casting ensures that even if we're surrounded by enemies, we'll still be able to get our spells off. Since we are going to be casting a lot of race spells, we go ahead and get Improved Critical Ray and Critical Focus. And then to take some of the previous level race spells and make them more effective, we get Quicken Spell, which is going to allow you to cast those spells as a swift action, and we get Meta Magic Reach to be able to pull them up to higher levels as well, and you'll see in a bit what I mean. Okay, so now let's dig into the heart of the build, which is the spells that you're going to be able to use. At level 1, in the beginning of the game, you're probably going to be using all of these to some degree, but long term, you're going to use Mage Armor and Shield to increase your survivability. And then every so often when you need some more evocation spells, you're going to dip into Magic Missile. At second level, Blur and Mirror Image, again, increase your survivability. Burning Arc is great if you're dealing with Burning Arc is great if you're dealing with a crowd of enemies, and then Scorching Ray is awesome and its damage increases over time. At level 3, I would say this is more so a buff spell level. Fireball does do great damage and you can fill your slots with it if you wanted to. But honestly, I find having haste available at all times is just a great quality of life aspect of the game. So I fill a lot of slots out with that. Displacement is going to increase your survivability or a melee character that you choose to place it on. And then there should definitely be somebody on the team who can cast protection from arrows. At level 4, Dimension Door is great when the enemies are able to get the jump on you. You can get into better positioning. And honestly, right now in the beta, there'll be times where you might drop through a floor or get stuck on a corner or something of that nature. And Dimension Door, again, is going to keep you from having to reload your game. Controlled Fireball is the spell you're going to use when you first get to this level, because it allows you to cast essentially Fireball, but right in the middle of your party members. So because it affects them very little. But over time, Dragon's Breath actually does more damage. So that's the one that you're going to be using long term. And it's also a great damaging spell. And then here at level 5, this is when things start to get a little bit crazy. So when you first get to this level, you'll use Fire Snake. It's a 50-foot line of flames and does 15d6 damage to a bunch of different enemies. Great stuff. But long term, once you get Zippy Magic and your individual spells are able to target more than one enemy, you're going to want to make sure that you have those type of spells at multiple spell ranks. So that's part of the reason we took Meta Magic Quicken. Because by putting Quicken on Magic Missile, you're going to take it from level 1 all the way to level 5, and then you're going to be able to cast it as a swift action, and it's going to target 2 enemies instead of 1. It's not going to do a crazy amount of damage, but being able to cast it as a swift action and then follow up with something that's going to do a lot more damage is definitely advantageous for you. And then at level 6, you're going to have access to a bunch of fantastic evocation powers. So when you first get here, you're going to probably use Chain Lightning. But again, once you get Zippy Magic, you're probably going to want to go ahead and switch over to Hellfire Ray, because it's going to do more damage to a single target, and you're going to be able to target 2 people. So it's not going to be able to blow up a room the way Chain Lightning can, but you start with Swift Action, Magic Missile, and then you follow up with Hellfire Ray. You could end up taking 2 enemies out on your turn, which is still absolutely fantastic. And then at level 7, you're definitely going to want to use Ice Body for its defensive capabilities. And when you first get here, you use Caustic Eruption, but once you get Zippy Magic and some of these meta magic feats that I've taken, you're going to want to take Scorching Ray and then pump it all the way up here. It's going to be a better swift action option than Magic Missile is for you. And so you'll use as many castings as you can of that, and then switch over to Magic Missile as your swift action when you're engaging enemies. And then at level 8, you've got Angelic Aspect Greater. Again, great defensive protection. Frightful Aspect gives you a bunch of great defensive properties and increases some of your physical attributes, along with giving you an aura that shakes enemies. So this is great stuff to have on yourself. And then Polar Ray is, I believe, the best ray spell in the game. So filling up all your slots with this, it's going to allow you to do great damage to multiple enemies and drain their dexterity every time they get hit. And then finally at level 9, obviously you want to have Fiery Body on at all times. Great defensive properties, great increases to your physical properties, and it increases the DC of your fire spells by 1. So why not have it on? And then in addition, you're going to take Clashing Rocks. Even though it's not evocation, it does damage enemies, and this damages a single enemy. So with the Azata Zipping Magic, you're going to do 20d6 of damage to 2 enemies every single turn. The next time you level up, you'll definitely want to go ahead and get the evocation spell so that you can go ahead and fill out this slot. Might as well have it available. And that's the build. It was an absolute blast to play as an Azata. Had a lot of fun. As you can see, Azata is a great mythic path, whether you're going with a melee build or a spellcasting build. And this has enough crazy things going on that I feel like it fits right in with the Azata. with all of the different ways you're pulling up lower level spells and mixing it around and blowing enemies up, I think it fits in perfectly. But let me know down in the comments, what do you think? I'm really looking forward to hearing your feedback. Is this build viable in your opinion? Is there something I could have done better to make the build even more effective? Let me know down below, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave me a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.